For those of you who've known me for a long time will probably remember years ago I used to write down stories and share them on social media about flying when I was a flight attendant for Horizon Air, and then I switched airlines and the stories kind of stopped. You probably noticed that. It's not that I stopped having stories, it's that I stopped sharing them. I just got a little bit nervous, a little bit worried about, I didn't want to paint anybody in a bad light. I didn't want people to come across as a certain way when in reality they may not have been that way. Passengers have bad days, I have bad days, everyone does. So I decided I still have stories and they're kind of burning a hole in my memory. So I want to get them out and just have grace. Everyone goes through bad days, and I don't know what these people were going through that day, that year, that decade. We don't know. So this first story today I want to share with you guys is about an older woman, and I'm just going to call her Coffee Lady. Seemed fitting. All right, so this was several years ago. I was in the middle of a trip. It was a 2 or 3 day trip. I was the A, which means I was working first class. And I don't love working first class, but I didn't hate it either. So, and I'll probably slip in and out of past tense and present tense just because it is still kind of weird that I'm not a flight attendant right now. So if I say something in present tense, it's still a little weird for me. So anyway, I was the A. And I was really excited, just got back from the layover and back from the hotel. And it's my first flight of the day. I'm serving the people in first class in the morning, and most people wanted coffee. And we're just about done with boarding. I'm ready to pack it all up. It looks like we've got almost everybody on board. And so what we do is we dump the coffee into the toilet, because when we take off, the coffee would potentially come out as we take off. So didn't want that to happen. So you have to dump the coffee. So anything that was left, you have to dump. So I just dumped the coffee, and one of our last passengers walks on board the plane, and little did I realize she was sitting in first class. So she was the last passenger in first class to board. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? And her response was, I need coffee right now. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. We don't have any left in the toilet. Didn't say that part. And I said, I'm so sorry. As soon as we get in the air, I can get you your coffee. And we are just about ready to close that boarding door. And I knew in my head, like, to brew a new pot of coffee, I'm going to delay this flight. I can't do that. And so that would be quite a write-up. Why was this flight delayed, Jolene? Well, passenger really needed her coffee, so I brewed a fresh pot and delayed the entire flight for it. No, I couldn't do that. So, needless to say, I didn't think it was that big a deal. And she goes very disgruntled to her seat. And I'm feeling bad that I just dumped the coffee. And I'm like, oh, if I had known, I should have looked at the seat map and seen that I was missing somebody still. And, you beat yourself up in the moment. But I'm thinking, it'll be okay. It's fine. Now, when we got on board the plane, there was mechanics that were still in the bathroom from the previous crew that brought the plane in. There was a mechanical. So there were still some mechanics and a mechanic or two in the bathroom, which sounds a little funny. But the bathroom had something going on. As he's coming out, I go, is everything good in the bathroom? And he goes, yeah. I probably should have asked, what's wrong with the bathroom? But I needed to do my pre-flight, get this flight boarded. I've got the agents going, are we ready to board? And it was just, I was like, no big deal, right? And the pilots didn't tell me, which sometimes they'll tell you why the mechanics were on board. Everything was good, right? Yeah, okay, let's go. Yay. Bathroom's fine, everything's fine, we're good to go. So we're taxiing down the runway. Everything's good. I'm in my jump seat here. I've got my D right next. She's right next to me on the jump seat that we share on the jump seat. And as soon as that nose lifted, I hear a sloshing sound. And then I smelt it. The delightful smell of sewer. As it rushed from in the lavatory under my jump seat, under our feet. We flipped our legs up as quickly as we could. We still had sewer on our shoes, but it puddled, the hugest puddle in that front galley area, and it smelled so bad. And so now I'm faced with a decision. Do I wait for 10,000 feet when we're supposed to get up? Because the pilots did say it was going to be bumpy on the get up. So I'm like, it's supposed to be bumpy, but we have the smell of sewer here, and I have first class right there. If they smell this, that's going to be on me the rest of this flight. So I pop out of my jump seat. I'm like, it's worth the risk. I grab a handful of paper towels, and my D grabs a handful of paper towels. We're throwing it on the ground, trying to sop it up. Before we know it, we're not even halfway done with cleaning the floor, by the way. We're at 10,000 feet. So at this point, I need to make an announcement. I grab the PA, and I start making my announcement. Hey, it's glad to have y'all on board. You know, we have free movies, free TVs, Wi-Fi is this. You know, you give the little spiel, okay? And by the way, I hope you don't smell litter. Litter. Litter, not cat litter. Sorry, I have cats. Litter, poop, it's all, yeah. So anyway, sewer, not litter. I hang up the phone. The lady from first class, the coffee lady, comes up. Mind you, the seatbelt sign is still on, which I had to remind her, because the pilot said it's going to be bumpy. And it was a little bumpy at this point. It did get worse, but she gets up. I tell her the seatbelt sign's on. She goes, I need that coffee now. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. It is just going to be another minute. As I'm on my hands and knees. Okay, not knees. That would be disgusting. I was squatting and trying to sop up all this sewer. And she crawls around me. Crawl isn't the right word. Climbs around me, I suppose, to get to the lavatory behind us. To use the lavatory. I didn't really think about it then, but after she left, I realized the puddle started in there, and so we had to clean the lavatory too, filled with a puddle of sewer that she would have been standing in to use the restroom. She didn't say anything about it though. Excuse me. Anyway, that was weird. But we're still trying to clean, and I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh, this is so gross. And I've got my gloves on. I'm like double or triple gloved at that point. And I'm trying to clean up the ground. And she comes out of the bathroom, looks at the coffee pot, looks at me disapprovingly, and says, it really stinks up here, and goes back to her seat. I didn't tell her what it smelled like. I didn't tell her what it was. I thought she could kind of figure it out. She came from the lavatory where it originated. Anyway, it turns out, after talking to the pilots, that the mechanics were on board because the toilet overflowed on the last flight. And I said, well, it's overflowing right now. And then the pilots assured me it was in fact fixed. But since there was overflow in the system, once we took off, all the overflow just flooded out. So what was left in the system had to drain out apparently. And that was how they did it. So would have been good to have a heads up. But yeah, so here I am assuming that I am just going to be pouring coffee through this entire flight because this lady really, really wanted her coffee. I gave her 1 cup of coffee. I asked her several times after if she wanted another cup. She was good. She just really wanted that cup of coffee. It was kind of shocking. So yeah, that was the time I had to clean up sewer in the front galley, all the while being guilted into not getting that cup of coffee for that lady who really needed coffee. And yeah, that was the first story for today. I hope you enjoy hearing some of my flight attendant stories from the past that I'm dredging up because I gotta share them at some point here, and I don't want to forget them. I want to make sure I share them so I will never forget them because, well, some of these I can tell you right now, I will never ever forget. So stay tuned.